Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Through the Whistle Sports. My name is Campbell, and I'm here with my partner Joseph, and we're going to get right into it. So, the first thing that we have, actually, before that, make sure to subscribe. And the first thing that we have is the reports that, or rumors that Chet Holmgren's going to the number one pick. And what do you think about that?
I think it's probably right. Um, I don't mind it when people say Jabari or when people say Paolo, but what you gotta understand is that the Magic need their number one guy. We've talked about this before. The Magic have a team of just a bunch of young guys, like
Yep.
young players, but none of them have superstar potential. So if you think Paolo has potential to be the number one option on a championship team, good for you. But I think he's like a perennial all-star, not a superstar number one option, right? He has that like kind of like that power forward issue where if you're not Giannis, you're never gonna be the number one. And the Magic need the number one because I don't think they're gonna get that in free agency. They've
No.
shown time and time again they're not a free agency destination, and if they are going to continue to tank and not be good, which I'm not sure that's what's happening, but I don't think their tanking blueprint um, was to get the number one overall pick and then select a perennial all-star instead of taking the risk and getting maybe that superstar top five player potential.
Yeah, I think that Chet Holmgren is easily the number one overall pick. Um, I just I don't feel like there should be any question about it. I just think he fits with the Magic. He fits what they need. Um, and something that we're going to talk about later. Bamba doesn't expect to re-sign, but so Chet Holmgren is going to be right there for the number one overall pick. But the issue is that um, I saw it was like a photo or whatever. It showed the Miami Heat starting lineup and which where they went in the draft for each of them, and then they compared it to the Orlando Magic and how high those players have been drafted and haven't performed well. But I don't.
But I think that's a little bit misleading because
Yes.
they also have guys like Terrence Ross, who I believe was a top 10 pick, but he's not like good. They also have guys like Gary Harris, who was a top 20 pick, but he wasn't like a guy they took, right? Like those graphics are a little bit misleading
Yeah.
in certain ways. Um, but I think that when you look at positional needs, obviously Wendell Carter thrived at the four, and I keep hammering this home to Magic fans who want Paolo. Wendell Carter was not good at the five. You moved him to the four because that's where he wanted to play, and he was really good. You draft Paolo. Now you're asking Paolo to play a position that he doesn't play. You're asking him to
Yep.
play the five. You're asking him to be a defensive big. Now, if you take Jabari and you re-sign Wendell, or not re-sign Wendell, re-sign Mo Bamba, I have no issues with that. Then you have a great lineup. You have Cole, Markel, um,
Suggs.
Isaac, or Cole, Markel have Jabari, Wendell, and Bamba, and then you have a bench of
Yeah.
Suggs, um, Isaac, RJ. You have a lot of good pieces. I just don't think Paulo fits what you need. You have too many fours already. You have Chumo Kiki, who's I like defensively. He's very good. Just it doesn't make sense to me to take Paulo. I think Chet is the number one guy as far as ceiling goes, by far. He just has that reach. His arms are super long. Even when he's getting bodied down low, he's still able to then poke his arm out and get that block.
Yeah. I and like his rim protection is like I think that um that's something that they're gonna need. I'm just do you think I'll ask you this. Do you think that Chet Holmgren can take them to the next level and take them to the playoffs?
Someday, yes. Next season,
No. I'm not talking about next season. I'm talking about at some
Oh,
point. Yeah,
yes, absolutely. I'm thinking they're going to be like a 10 seed next year.
yeah. I think they'll make the
I
play-in.
I expect I expect growth from them next year. Maybe like and once you get to that play-in, anything is possible. I think the Magic have a lot to be excited about next year. You know, their team still has a lot of cap space.
Yeah,
17 million from Jonathan Isaac. I doubt you're going to be able to get a Zach LaVine. I doubt you're going to be able to make a trade work for Donovan Mitchell. I doubt you're going to be able to do that next year. But hey, you're going to have another top pick. Have
yeah,
another top 8 pick. And when you have that many chances, as we've seen with teams that are consistently bad, eventually you hit. And I think Chet will be a hit. I would not be surprised if next year there's some prospect who's really good and hits. I also wouldn't be surprised if we see a step forward from Markelle Fultz, a step forward
yes,
from Cole Anthony. Hey, Darius Garland was the worst point guard. Like, he was really bad for years. Then he took a huge step forward. So if we see that kind of leap from what's his name? Thugs,
yeah,
then they're easily a 10 seed. They could have like a Cavs type next season.
yeah. Um, I think that it all has to do with development because all of those guys that they have right now are really young, with unproven and untapped potential, with the exception of maybe Markelle Fultz, because he's been in a league for a little bit longer, but he's been injured, so he hasn't been able to like really show that. And then once he came back, he was
Yeah.
on limited minutes, and the guard position is already high, or not high, but like they already have a lot of guards that they were trying to develop. Um, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point Markelle Fultz um, actually either gets traded or leaves the Orlando Magic, because with the young core, like I get that he can be good, and he was leading the Magic to one of the top seeds before he tore his ACL, but I don't see where he develops at this point with the Orlando Magic, and I'm wondering what you think about that.
I think if he's good enough, he's going to get minutes and he's going to
Yeah,
develop. I believe he has 2 years left on his deal. So when you have two guys they're literally on the same contract, by the way. They both got the same contract, Jonathan Isaac and Markelle Fultz. They got like 3 years, 17.5 million. Those two contracts are extremely pairable together. If they wanted to go out and get someone, they have the opportunity to do that. Now, do I think they have the roster that if they go and make a move like that, they're going to be good at all? No.
no,
No. But would I be surprised if the coming off season, if Markelle Fultz doesn't improve and Jonathan Isaac in small sample size, like 30 games, doesn't show you the pitches he showed you before? I would not be surprised if they package them together along with their lottery pick next year to move. But I do think Marco Fultz says next year is like a make it or break it year for him.
yep,
Like if he wants to be an all-star, he needs to show continued strides. Do I think he can be an all-star? Yes. Do I think it's likely? No. But next year is like that year for him. And another guy who's next year is make it or break it, Mo Bamba,
yes,
which is such a weird thing to say, like make it or break it year, but he's gonna go out and get a 10-year or like a 10 million 4-year deal. Yeah, yeah. I think you're giving him that contract in the same way Laurie Markkinen got that contract last year, right? You've seen the strides, you've seen weeks where he looks like God himself, but he has not been consistent. He has not been a very good rim protector. And that is why the Magic are like, we need to get rid of him. We need to sub him out
yeah,
for a guy like Chet Holmgren who can do the things he can't. Mo Bamba was drafted to be that rim protector. He hasn't been. Um, I think there are a lot of teams he can go to. Don't know what team it's going to be that has the minutes. If they're not going to be able to give him minutes on the Magic, he's going to go to a place and barely get 15 in my opinion, right?
yeah. I'm trying to think of a place right now.
like, okay, if he wants the bag or if he doesn't want the bag, there are a ton of places he could go. The Pelicans need a backup five. If he wants to take that
Yep.
like $5 million deal, he could totally do that. The Lakers are always looking for players. The Clippers, while they have Zubac, they could still use that young energy off the bench. Um, I think the most likely landing spot though is the Knicks, simply because Mitchell Robinson seems to be on the outs as well.
Yep.
And that just kind of makes sense to me. Um, I expect Mitchell Robin or Mo Bamba to get like right around 4 years, 50 million. It, but I don't know if there's a team. You have to overpay because he's restricted. And I don't know if there's a team. There's a possibility that Mo Bamba gets underpaid because the Magic don't want him, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Um, the Hornets, obviously, they don't have a center, but I think they could replace that in the draft. The Raptors don't have a center, but like Mo Bamba, the answer, you're just getting Precious Achua. You just traded for Precious Achua. Are you really going to bring in Mo Bamba for money? I don't know. The Knicks, like they just don't have anything at the center, especially if they decide to let what's his name, Mitchell Robinson go. I think maybe the Mavs.
That
I
could
think that
actually
could
be
be
a
a good
good landing
fit.
spot.
Yeah.
But would he start? That's he.
I don't think it would matter if he started because they just need someone who can rebound a little bit better than Maxi Kaliba can.
Yeah.
Like, I think he'd get those spot minutes, and if he develops, he develops. But
Yeah.
if not, then he's just like the Dwight Powell replacement. That's it's like it's like a low risk, high reward because you're already paying overpaying Dwight Powell. So, um, I would not be surprised if the Thunder give him some money, especially if the Thunder do decide to take a guy like Paolo Banchero, or a Jabari Smith. Like if Chet falls to pick two and they don't take him, Mitchell Robinson or Mo Bamba are two very good targets for them. Um, if the Suns lose Aiton, could they go and pay Mo Bamba? I
Um.
know. Okay, if they sign and trade Aiton for like a
Yeah.
Josh Hart, and then they go and get Mo Bamba, then they're just reloading on the depth. And I don't think they need.
Yeah.
Like I think
I
they
don't. Yeah.
don't respect Aiton. I think they think he's an average center, and if I think they think he's replaceable, so they go out and they replace him for someone for like 25 million cheaper, and get deeper in the process. It's a possibility.
Yeah.
Like we've seen Chris Paul make DeAndre Jordan look really good. Really good.
Well. Yeah. Yeah. I do think that's true. And if if the Suns do decide to move Aiton, um, I feel like that would. I honestly think that'd make Aiton a better player. To be honest, even
Um,
but
it makes me mad.
it's.
I don't like that that makes them better.
I think that yeah, I think that it'd make the Suns better depending on who they fill that role with. But I do like what you said with Bomba, um, with the Mavericks, with the rebounding. I think that'd be a good signing for the Mavericks this offseason. Once they,
Especially if they feel like they just need wing depth and like
yes,
center is super replaceable. So I don't know, and it's a cheap option too. Like you'd probably be able to give away Dwight Powell to the Mavs too. You send Dwight
yeah,
Powell to the Mavs and add in a second round pick. Bam, you just swapped Dwight Powell for Mo Bamba. That's a really good pickup. Because Mo Bamba still has potential. I think that gets lost simply because he's been so so far.
yeah, and I'm wondering if these thoughts about Mo Bamba possibly getting moved is simply because Chet Holmgren is going number one. Do you think that in any other draft class he may be on the move? Say a guard was at the number one pick, or like,
Or just
well,
say that they
yeah,
got like the fifth pick,
yeah,
right? And like it's Shadon Sharp or
yeah. So do you
Keegan
think?
Murray
Yeah.
or
So do you think that Mo Bamba would be on the move in that case?
I think they'd be more likely to match, right? Like I think you'd have to pay him more like 15 instead of 10,
Yep.
which it's only 5 million, yeah, but over a 4-year deal, it's 20 million more. Um,
Yeah.
I think if they didn't get the number one pick, like that's why it released as soon as they got the number one pick. Oh, Mo Bamba might be gone. They're setting up their fans to be like, okay, Mo Bamba's gone. It's whatever, but at least we got this guy. That's kind of what the Pelicans did. Um,
Yeah, and he was
they were
also
like,
shopped at.
Lonzo's gone.
Yeah.
Lonzo's gone. We shopped him at the deadline. Um, just accept he's gone. We're gonna bring in Devonte Graham though, and I think that could be what the Suns do, right? Okay, we shopped Ayton at the deadline. Looks like he's gone. Um, we're gonna bring in Mo Bamba though. Like that's what I think could happen with the Suns.
Yeah, and
But I do think there's going to be a little bit more of a bidding war than people think because that mid-level exception is like 12 million. Mo Bamba on the mid-level is not a bad offer at all.
yeah, and Mo Bamba, even if he's not your starting center, he's backup centers are pretty rare to come by, and he would be a good backup center, good off the
Big man depth
bench.
is not big man depth does not exist,
Yeah,
right? It's like Frank Kaminsky is not a very good backup center, but he gets minutes. Bismack Biyombo, not a very good backup. Dwight Powell, there's like some really average names.
yeah,
Um, but they still get minutes and I think Mo Bamba can be better than all those guys I just listed.
yeah,
Um, moving on to the next topic, which is Malcolm Brogdon to the Knicks, a team we just talked about as far as Mitchell Robinson potentially
yes,
leaving. Um, I like it because you have that score in Emmanuel Quickly, but you don't have that offensive initiator in Malcolm Brogdon. Now, if Dyson Daniels falls to pick 11, or if you have a good playmaker that falls to pick 11, it doesn't have to be him as much as I like him, but if you can get a playmaker instead of trading for Malcolm Brogdon like in the draft, I think that's how you do it because you know what? Your team is not a piece away. If you give up pieces to go out and get Brogdon, your team is just those pieces back as well, right? If you give up if you give up Evan Fournier, you better expect like Miles McBride to come out and be a knockdown three-point shooter.
yeah,
Right? Like you can't move off pieces and be like, oh well, now we just added Malcolm. No, you made a trade. Malcolm Brogdon's not a free agent. He's a trade piece. I hope they don't overpay because that would really suck for Knicks fans. Because Malcolm Brogdon is a great role player, a guy who I wanted the Pelicans to go after at the deadline if they were not able to get a C.J. McCollum or a De'Aaron Fox of that caliber. Um, he's someone who I would love to see on the Rockets because they don't have a playmaker, and that's part of the reason why I think they might get screwed when it comes to the third overall pick. Because if
yes,
their big man that they draft needs a playmaking guard to get him the ball, I think there's going to be a little bit of issues with the back court and the front court, that connection. Um, but I think it would be good if they can pull it off. But
yeah.
I don't want them to overpay.
And I expect the Knicks to have some changes at guard this offseason because let me look at their guards right now. So they got Derrick Rose, who's 33, Alec Burke,
Older.
who is age 30, Kemba Walker, who's age 32. They're saying that they shut him down for the rest of the season to prepare. I think that's actually to keep his trade value somewhat good if there is any at all. Um, I expect all three of those. If I expect those three, at least two of them to be gone. And I think that Malcolm Brogdon would be good for the Knicks um, if the Knicks were able to pull that off. But Brogdon is how old is Brogdon? He's 29, isn't he?
28, 29, right
Yeah.
around there. Yeah, which isn't a bad age if you
Yes, it
think like
isn't.
that's their roster right now. Most of their players are 28, 29, 30, and then they have a few young guys, which is why everyone's so frustrated with the Knicks because they feel like they have no direction, and I get it. Just
Yep.
hit on your draft picks. Stop trading for 29-year-olds. Hit on your draft picks.
Yeah.
But the Knicks will be the Knicks, and that's just what it is. A potential deal for Malcolm Brogdon would be Evan Fournier, Miles McBride, and a Dallas 2023 first round pick, which is not.
Yeah.
I don't like. I don't like it. I
I
think you'd be better off just matching Mitchell Robinson and running back with your team. Maybe that's a
yeah.
bad take, but there's just so many questions when it comes to the Knicks, and I don't feel like trying to answer them because we never know when it comes to the Knicks. There's so much stuff that happens
Yeah.
for that team. Like, could Julius Randle be moved for the Kings' fourth overall pick? I think so.
He
I'm
could
not sure
be.
you're going to get the fourth overall pick. I think you're going to have to give up more in that deal. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see the Knicks really looking to move up in this draft. They don't have that answer yet. And if Julius Randle is someone who they think is going to get moved, then it's time to move him. Like, do it. Do it now. Don't wait a season and watch his trade value continue to regress. Because in the back of people's minds, there's still that, like, 25, 8 and 8 player that we just had with Julius Randle. Like Julius Randle,
Yeah.
everyone forgets he was an absolute dog in his second year, first year with the Knicks, whatever year he was an all-star. He was insane. And the longer you let that slip out of people's minds, the worse his trade value gets. Because at a certain point, he's just an um, overpaid power forward, and power forwards are not the position that you need to have people overpaid at.
Yeah. And so you said that they could try to move up to number 4. Who do you think would be
Yeah.
available there, and who do you think should they
The
pay?
idea would the idea would be Jaden Ivey
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
at 4, just because obviously the top 3 guys are gone.
Yep.
Keegan Murray would literally just be, he would probably, if you're trying to win now and you're looking for like that explosive guard, Jaden Ivey or Shadon Sharp are like the only 2 options. Obviously Shadon Sharp is a little bit questionable simply because he has not really played since high school.
And we're going to talk
Um,
about that at some point.
yeah, and Keegan Murray, the thing about Keegan Murray that I like is I think he goes there with a team. I'd rather take, no, I'm not going to say that. I'm Would I rather take the risk of Julius Randle bouncing back or Keegan Murray having a Julius Randle caliber season? I don't like either option. I don't like trading Julius Randle up for that. But one thing I will say is I think if you try and trade up to pick 4 with Julius Randle, I think you might have to give up your later lottery pick, which I don't like. I don't
Yeah.
like that. I think if you're the Knicks, you don't do that if you have to give up any more draft capital. You try and give up players.
Well,
Um,
yeah, because I think that's just a terrible trade for the Knicks. For
it's a lateral move.
yeah, Julius Randle and what, the 11th pick, I think it is. Yeah, the 11th pick for the
Yeah.
number 4. Um,
But like, look, we talked about it last episode. The pressure that is put on front offices
yes.
to perform. The Kings have that pressure more now than ever. Like they are getting fired if they don't make the playoffs next year.
Yep.
Are getting fired. Like that has been confirmed by multiple sources that they are gone if they do not make the playoffs next year. So should Kings fans should be rooting to not make the playoffs next year. Because even if
Yeah.
they do, it's going to be a 1 year thing and they're not going to make it for another 20 years. And Kings fans are going to be like, man, I wish we didn't make the playoffs that year because that front office is horrible.
And they shouldn't have even been trying to get into the playoffs in the first place because
I agree.
that Sabonis trade was
It's
awful.
terrible. Everyone thought it was going to be De'Aaron Fox for Sabonis.
That would have been
Everyone thought that. That would have been a good move for both teams, in my
yes.
opinion.
That would have been
Especially if the Kings
much
throw in their
better.
pick this year. Like, that would have been a perfect trade.
Yeah.
But instead, now we don't have that duo of Tyrese Halliburton and Domantas Sabonis, which, by the way, I would have loved to see that. The
That would have
playmaking of
been good.
both of them would have been fun. I would
Yeah.
have loved that. But no, we're not going to do that. We're going to make a trade that nobody wants us to make. Um, Other picks that could be traded, OKC is shopping that 12th pick because they believe the board could fall in a very specific way that there's a player there at 12. I don't know who they're talking about. Maybe Shadon Sharp's value has fallen more than we think because
That could be
OKC
possible.
thinks there's a guy there that they're not willing to take, but they think other teams could take. I just don't know who that guy is. I don't. The way I look at the board right now, I feel like everything's very set. Like I feel like there aren't very like unless like and all the guys that would fall are OKC type players to draft.
Yep. And I
So
think
I
that
just don't know
yeah.
what are they talking about is like my thing. I don't know what they're talking about.
I think that it'd actually be smart for OKC to move out of that spot, especially with the rumors going around that if they think that someone who's gonna be there that they should draft and they don't want, but other teams would want, if they can get a good package for that pick, I think that would be. I think that actually work out for them, especially with the number two pick that they have, and
Well, my thing is I think they don't like this class at all.
yeah,
That's my opinion. I think they have like two guys they like and that's it. Because when you listen to them talk about the draft class last year, they were ecstatic. Like they threw in Shea for the number one pick. That was their thing. They're like, we'll give you Shea and we get the number one pick. We also throw in like 2 future firsts, I believe the deal was. We have
yeah,
not heard Shea get shopped at all yet.
yeah,
And if she isn't getting shopped, then maybe this class is not as good as last year. But honestly, last year was a historic draft class, right? Like I don't think either of us expected Giddy to be as good as he was. I don't think anyone expected Scotty to be as good as he was right away. The top 3 guys were all good right away. 4 guys were all good right away. Um, Obviously Jalen Green had a struggle this season, but he turned it up. He turned it up.
yep,
And the depth in the class, right? You had guys like Ayo Dosunmu, you had Herb Jones, like those are just really good quality role players that were in the
rookie team
second round.
selections.
Yep, that were in the second round.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't think they love this. I don't think they love this class.
and
I
I
don't.
think that they definitely have some wiggle room, especially with those two picks. Obviously, they're like
They
pretty
move
far.
up and down the board.
Yeah, they're pretty far away from each other, but I think that the number two selection they're gonna obviously keep. I think that the Thunder could either move up if they want someone, or move out of the lottery completely. Maybe move out of the first round with that pick. But yeah, they definitely have a lot of wiggle room with those two picks. It's gonna be interesting to see
Not only
because
that, not only just with the picks, but like with the front
yeah,
office. Like I think the front office has a more space than almost any other front office in the league. Other than the Warriors.
I think that's fair.
Other than the Warriors, I think the OKC Thunder have like the most wiggle room of any team. And I think that can bring us to our next point, which is that Wiggins gonna need a contract extension.
Yep. Especially
And
after how he's played, um I guess not only in the playoffs but as well as against Luka Doncic. so
Oh
far
yeah,
this year.
all star starter Andrew Wiggins, right?
He's
Over Brandon Ingram. Haha, don't hold that against him at all. I think he's gonna get a stupid large extension, whether it's from the Warriors or from another team. I think we could see Wiggins traded after this season. Um, I
so
know it's probably not the I know it's probably not the most logical thing, but the Warriors drafted Moses Moody to be the Wiggins replacement. They have Kuminga as a four to do the defensive things that Wiggins does. They have so much depth that has not yet emerged that I think we could see Wiggins move simply because they don't want to go another $50 million
yeah,
into the luxury tax. I think fans underestimate just how little um, teams want to go into the luxury tax. Yes, they want to stay relevant, but if they can stay under that number, they're going to do everything in their power to stay under that number. That is why the Pelicans added Tomas Satoransky into the CJ trade because it would have cost them another like $20 million just to do that trade if they didn't do that. It's like fans don't understand that teams are going to do anything and everything to avoid that number. Now, if they win the championship this year and Curry says you extend Wiggins, they're extending Wiggins. But that team's about to get so expensive.
yeah. I don't.
Curry, Clay, Dre, Wiggins. We have Poole, who's going to need an extension. We have Kuminga in 3 years. We have Wiseman after this next season. If Wiseman comes out and plays well this upcoming season, which I highly doubt he will,
He'll
but
get a
if he does,
contract.
and then he'll get a contract, like
Yeah.
don't know what the plan here is.
And my thing with the Warriors is that I don't expect any of the big three to leave. I
No,
don't.
they can't. They
Yeah,
can't. They can't trade them, and they're all under contract for like the next 4 years.
yeah,
So unless you're like gonna say, okay, Clay, look, we love you, man, but bye, you're gonna have to move on from Wiggins. It's sort of like they keep getting these two-way wings who are really good on defense and like make shots. Like Wiggins is Harrison Barnes from that run.
yeah,
Like it's Kuminga will eventually be that, and Kuminga will probably has more potential than Wiggins or Harrison Barnes currently. Like as in when at their age on the Warriors, I think Kuminga could be an all-star while the other two nowhere no Wiggins made an all-star game, but he was not an all-star and like you get what I mean.
yeah,
Like all-star solidified whether they're on the Warriors or not, I think they could be an all-star. Kuminga has a way higher ceiling than any of them. I just think there's an odd guy out and I think it's Andrew Wiggins.
yeah. I don't see where he's able to stay with the Warriors long term, considering the players that they. I mean, they have to keep. They would be like
It would be clowned if they
they would
let
be
Clay
clowned
go.
if they would be clowned if they let Clay go. They'd be clowned if they let Draymond go, who I don't think would be good under any other circumstance. Maybe that's a hot take, but I've seen it thrown around. But still, they'd be clowned for that. They'd be clowned to let Curry go, even if it's like because he's getting older, which all of them are getting older. I think that Wiggins is gonna have to go.
Yeah, and it's just it sucks though because Wiggins is better than Clay at this point in his career, and
Yeah,
like if this was any other player, like if it was just any contract, like Clay would be gone. But it's the attachment, it's the nostalgia, and I think
it's
could
the
you
name.
imagine if they just said could you imagine if they just said Clay you're gone? Could you imagine if they sent Clay away? Do you
I
know how much
yeah,
uproar there would be?
not just from
That just
Warriors
wouldn't happen.
fans, not
From
just
like
from
NBA
yeah,
fans, oh,
yeah,
loyalty's gone. You know the old heads who are always like, loyalty doesn't exist in the NBA anymore. They'd be right because Clay got moved for a bag of chips because that's his
Yes.
trade value at this point. Like that's just I don't know.
He Yeah, I just don't see how you're able um to move the big three in Golden State because just from the social standpoint. Um
I don't think you can. I don't think you can.
yeah, so I
Um
think that you have to move Wiggins.
yeah.
Um
So Nicholas Claxton is the last thing we have to talk about because apparently the Nets are willing to match whatever he gets. Whatever he gets, like that's a really weird quote from the GM. I don't like the Nets GM. I think he's done a mediocre job of building that roster. And maybe it's you know how there's the Le GM joke, right?
yeah.
I think that there should be a KD joke as well. Nothing rolls off the tongue, but like you think KD didn't demand for Harden to get there when Harden said he'd be willing? Like you think KD didn't let go of Jared. Like the whole point of Katie and Kyrie going to the Nets, in my opinion, was that they already had so much depth.
Yep.
Like they were both gonna replace what D'Lo did. Right? They still had Karis LeVert, they still had Jared Allen. They had the rim protection and they let it go. Could you imagine all-star Jared Allen on this roster?
Yeah.
They would still be in the playoffs. They would still be in the playoffs if they had all-star Jared Allen. I just don't understand. They would have won more regular season games as well. I just don't understand how you're going to say we'll match anything from Nicholas Claxton. He could get a $10 million deal. He could get a $15 million deal. That's like right in the range for those young, good big men who
And
have rim protection
yeah,
potential.
and he's a good rebounder too, and I think that was the only reason mainly why he was even getting 20 minutes,
Getting minutes.
because I mean, if you saw his free throw percentage, that was just horrible, especially during the last game. But they needed the rebounds, they needed the rim protection. Um, I don't see how you extend
It could
or
be. It could be just a quote, right?
yep,
It could just be a quote. But I just don't really understand it from like a this is what we really want more than anything
yeah,
perspective. Do you get what I mean?
yeah, and
Um,
just going back to Karis LeVert, what had happened was KD went to the Nets. That was when he was still recovering from his ruptured Achilles during the finals. And
mhm,
Karis LeVert was their star for that season, and he played great. And all the
they missed the
Nets,
playoffs.
yeah, they missed the playoffs. But he thought that he was opening himself to staying with the Nets long term because he played so well. But all the Nets saw and all the front office and the GM saw was his trade value going up during that year. And that's
Yep.
exactly what happened.
Yep. Some breaking news. Denver Nuggets president Tim Connelly has agreed to a deal with the Minnesota Timberwolves. That'll make him one of the NBA's highest compensated executives. So we all know that there were some accusations against the Minnesota Timberwolves general manager literally weeks before the season started. They hired an interim and the owner was not happy. Owner didn't love it. Um, Conley will sign a 5-year,
Huh.
$40 million+ deal that includes ownership equity. That is
Wow.
insanity. That is franchise altering. That is like there's never been a deal that large. Could we potentially see this happen more often? Could we see presidents get ownership equity? Presidents, general managers, head coaches, hell, even players get ownership equity for their services on the team.
I think,
Once it starts, it doesn't stop, right? It's the same thing with players demanding out, right? Once they say I'm going to the Lakers and they get sent to the Lakers, it didn't stop. It started to go, it spiraled, it built up, it kept happening over and over again. Harden, AD, all those players.
Yeah, and I think that this report and this entire thing in general is gonna go under the radar just because it just doesn't seem cool, but like it's gonna be a big thing in the next coming years, especially if like you said, head coaches and players could possibly get ownership equity, just like uh Denver Nuggets president of basketball operations just got. I think I think this is gonna be a new, not, it won't,
Trend.
yeah, it's gonna be a new trend. It's gonna be uh starting up like once LeBron had went to the Miami Heat, because he broke that social norm of staying with the team that drafted you. That the idea when LeBron left to the Heat of players not being loyal and leaving, that was there, but he sort of broke that social norm, and I think that this is gonna start. It's gonna start something. It's gonna become the norm, and it's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out with teams.
And the Denver Nuggets general manager is now expected to assume lead of the basketball operations role.
Huh.
According to the owner, there's a lot of belief in Calvin Booth, inside the organization. He's a former NBA veteran and is well respected as a general manager across the league. Booth will be in charge of appointing the next general manager for the Denver Nuggets. I wonder how this trickles down, because if they do not hire from the inside and they hire from the outside, could we see someone who doesn't have attachment to Michael Porter Jr., doesn't have attachment to Jamal Murray, look to make moves to free up cap space and get a second star alongside Nikola Jokic?
Um,
A
you,
real
yeah,
star.
I think that's honestly possible, and what's unfortunate is that we haven't seen that big three fully healthy
Yeah.
for a while
I don't
now.
think it ever will be.
I don't think it will be, and they're one of the best teams in the NBA when
Without,
those three are healthy. And but I don't think that they're gonna stay healthy at the same time. I think it's gonna be something similar to the big three in Brooklyn, except for the fact that those are all like superstar players in Brooklyn compared to the Denver Nuggets. But I think that the big three are gonna be injured. Jamal Murray is going to be coming off an ACL tear. Michael Porter Jr. had some back issues at the start of the year. Nikola Jokic isn't getting any younger, and especially with how some of the hard fouls that he got even during the Golden State series. That's going to take a toll on a toll on his body at some point, and I could see them moving on from Murray and Porter Jr.
Uh, that'll be a storyline that'll continue to develop, because they still have to fill that role of head
Yep.
coach, or that role of general manager. Could we see a thing like Brad Stevens was promoted to general manager?
Uh,
Could we see a Mike Malone general manager kind of thing, or is that out of question, do you think?
I think that's out of question because of what was going on with the Celtics at the time. Like Brad Stevens coming out of Duke, he was making his way up the coaching ranks, got to Duke, and then was signed by the Celtics. And I don't know, Brad Stevens is so interesting with how it happened.
Mike Malone is no slouch of a head coach. Mike
Yes,
Malone is like a top 8, top 7, maybe even top 5 head coach in the league. He has been very consistent. He's had, what, 2 Western Conference Finals appearances already in a very young head coaching career. Um, it's it's might be out of the question just because that was like a rare occurrence. But as we've seen in the
Yeah.
past with things, once it happens once, it'll continue to happen.
So who do you think would be a good fit?
Head coaching wise.
Yes, with the
Mm,
vacancies that they have right now, or not the vacancies, but the
I
available
usually
people.
I usually don't like it, but I would love to see Mike D'Antoni coach Nikola Jokic. Which is like the most
Yeah,
random thing. But could you imagine a Mike D'Antoni offense, but you also have that big man down low?
yeah,
That's just such a like it's such an interesting idea. But I doubt it'll ever happen. We're getting
no,
deep into the hypotheticals.
yep,
Let's go over some trades. So some of these are really weird. The interesting thing is that like I don't know. There's some consistent names in here, right? Gordon Hayward is one. Ben Simmons is one. Clint Capella is one.
yeah.
It's like, don't laugh. I get it. Um,
No, the Ben Simmons is pretty funny because he could be traded twice and not even have played a game in that time.
no. But let's go over ones that I think are a little bit more realistic. Jeremy Grant signs a 4-year extension worth like 100 million. Package for Eric Bledsoe, Sear Little, 2 future first round picks. Who says no?
Eric
In my
Bledsoe, huh?
Yeah, it's non-guaranteed. It's literally just okay, filler. We're gonna fill this. You can get
Yeah,
rid of him if you want to. Um, it's just to make the money work.
yeah. I think that's actually pretty interesting. Um, 2 first round picks. I'm wondering if that's a lot. I think one maybe
So
with
if
two.
I'm
Yeah,
if I'm the Pistons, I either want that lottery pick or I want two.
yeah. So that's what I was
If
thinking.
but the Pistons have all the leverage because they own the player, right?
Yeah,
So they could demand too. I think it could. I think it might happen. And everyone's like, I could see everyone in the comment section here is like, Nasir Little is a first round pick. What are you doing? Okay, Nasir Little was a late first round pick and has shown nothing but like 1, 2 games. I think he's had like okay games.
yeah,
I think they're gonna demand that much. And like I think a lot of the Portland moves this offseason might be considered overpays, and here's why. Teams know they're desperate to win now this offseason. And when teams know they're desperate to win now this offseason, everyone's going to raise the price because they think they can get more.
yeah. Um, yeah. So I think that'd be a good trade for both sides. I think for Portland, they need more if they want to try and run it back with Damian Lillard. I think that they'd need more in free agency, put a few more packages together. Uh, Joe Ingles, he won't be he probably won't be a possibility to put into packages, even if it's just a fill to make the money work, because he's already said that he's probably going back to the Jazz, or because he never wanted to be traded in the first place. It happened because he tore his ACL. Um,
And
but his
everyone knew he
Twitter,
was a
yeah,
everyone knew he was just a a filler
yeah,
player. But the other one is Ben Simmons to the Hawks for Clint Capella, Danilo Gallinari, first and 2 unprotected seconds. I can't believe I don't get it. I don't Simmons is just so annoying, and I
he
hate talking
is.
about him. I hate talking about him. It's not that like I don't like him as a person. I just think that all the drama surrounding him is annoying. He's
Yeah,
not a bad player. Let's stop acting like he's the worst worst NBA player of all time.
And Philadelphia didn't think that either. I just want to say that most Philadelphia fans did not think that either. But he wasn't the greatest fit. And then Doc Rivers and Joel Embiid said comments after they lost to the Hawks, and he decided not to play for them.
Yep. It's an unfortunate situation. Obviously, sign and trades for DeAndre Ayton are super popular right now. So Ayton and Dario Saric for Kelly Olynyk and Isaiah Stewart. I don't think you'd have to give up Isaiah Stewart.
I think that
because sign and trades don't have to be equal.
Yeah.
Could give up some rando and get DeAndre Ayton back.
Because I still think Stewart has more trade value.
I think his value as well.
Yeah.
The Pacers get more shooting, and they finally get their big man, Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, for Gordon Hayward, Caleb Martin, and the 15th pick from New Orleans. I don't mind it at all, but I think Gordon Hayward to a third team is a possibility. I think Gordon Hayward would need to be moved somewhere else.
Yeah.
If they could move Gordon Hayward again.
Yeah, and my thing is that if I was a general manager, I would not be trying to get Gordon Hayward at all.
Yeah, I don't think they're trying to. I think he's just salary filler. But that's my point. All you're getting is the 15th pick for Miles Turner. I think there's a little bit more you could get, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you could get more with the 15th pick.
I agree. Obviously, let's pause it because I'm not sure how much more we have.
Yeah. So all of those trades are actually possible. I believe. Some of them more realistic than others. Some maybe able to be tweaked and they could work. But yeah, that's actually all that we have for today. So once again, make sure to subscribe. We're going to be coming out with more NFL news as the NBA season comes to a close, as well as NBA draft prospects. That's going to be one of the big things in our channel, so definitely subscribe and stay tuned to that. And other than that, we once again want to say make sure you subscribe. Thank you all for watching, and have a good one.